Well, they are the Air Force's enemy within and are touted as India's flying coffins. Now, a serving wing commander has deeply embarrassed the government after moving the Delhi High Court over the perils of flying aging MiG-21 fighter jets. The petition by the serving wing commander says that flying these jets violate one's fundamental right to life. The petition was filed by Sanjiv Singh Kaila, a serving officer in the Indian Air Force who's seeking justice after a regular flying sortie went horribly wrong. The Indian Air Force officer suffered debilitating neck and back pain after he was forced to eject after his MiG-21 caught fire. Kaila made sure his plane on fire did not hit a village on the ground but suffered irreparable physical injuries in the process. The court has directed the centre to provide a list of MiG-21 crashes so far. Headlines Today Deputy Editor Shiv is now joining us on the phone line. Shiv, this is a serving officer who has moved court saying flying MiG-21 violates fundamental right to life. Have we heard from the Indian Air Force or from the Defence Ministry after his moved court?
Actually, no, Ruchika. The Defence Ministry and the Indian Air Force have restrained themselves from commenting on this particular issue because, like you rightly pointed out, it is pretty embarrassing for them. Wing Commander Sanjiv Kaila is a serving officer. He's a wing commander, and ever since that very, very unfortunate accident in 2005, he's been restricted to flying microlight aircraft. With the NCC. So you can imagine what that's done for, the spirit of a fighter pilot. But what he's basically done now is unprecedented. There have been cases in the past by the family of those who've, lost their lives in accidents of this kind, Ruchika. But this is the first time that you've got a serving officer who's actually taken the government to court, declaring that flying a MiG-21 violates a pilot's fundamental right to life. It takes the entire argument against this particular aircraft and flight safety in the Indian Air Force to another level altogether. I do know for a fact that as we speak, the Indian Air Force and the Ministry of Defence are, currently looking at the data that they have, and it's going to be very embarrassing data that they will be submitting before October 10th to the High Court, Ruchika. The figures that we have, the latest figures that we have are out of about 750 MiG-21s that have been inducted into the Air Force since the mid-1960s. 350, as many as 350 of them have crashed, killing, close to 200 pilots. So that's almost half the entire fleet strength of MiG-21 has simply been wiped out by, crashes. Now, as a result of a combination of very unfortunate circumstances and factors, the MiG-21s, which should have been, phased out by this time, will continue to remain in service at least until 2017 in an upgraded form. Now, I must say here that, pilots who fly the MiG-21 do it without question. They're very brave pilots. They believe in the aircraft. They believe in their maintenance stuff. But at the end of the day, if an aircraft has reached the end of its operational life and needs to be retired, the fact is a case of this kind by Wing Commander Kaila is going to throw a lot of light onto just why the Indian Air Force is compelled to continue using these aircraft. It's easy to look at the, to complain about the Indian Air Force, but let's always remember that the Indian Air Force doesn't have a choice in the matter. It has to maintain a certain minimum fleet strength because of the various responsibilities it has, and because newer aircraft haven't been inducted, lack of planning, red tape, corruption, all of those factors have played a part in it, Ruchika. The MiG-21 will keep flying till 2017, and that's the reality of it.
Just stay on with me, Shiv. We also have Air Marshal retired P.V. Nayak now joining us on the phone line. Sir, how do you see the serving officer now moving courts, saying flying these flying coffins, as they're called now, actually violates one's fundamental right to live? How do you see this?
I think it will be very clear which we will be talking about. At present, we are talking about the Typhoon is the latest in the series that we have. It's 21 page modified by us. So
well, I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Nayak. I don't think our line has got connected. We will just come back to you. There's some problem with that connection. Let me just quickly go back to Shiv. In the meantime, we'll try and fix that line and go back to Air Marshal P.V. Nayak to get his sense of what really he feels should be the Indian Air Forces and the government's response to this, considering a serving officer has moved court. Shiv, what so far have been the compulsions from the side of the government, or for that matter, the Indian Air Force, for not pressing hard enough to ensure at least the service of MiG-21 be discontinued after so many crashes?
Let's get one thing very clear, Ruchika. The Indian Air Force is an innocent party in all of this, at least more innocent than, the Ministry of Defense and the government at large, especially the Finance Ministry and other departments. The fact is the Indian Air Force has had, an effort, an endeavor to get newer fighters, more modern, safer fighters for a very long time now. And even at this time, it hasn't been able to induct new fighters for many, many years, barring just a few Mirage 2000s, which are relatively much safer aircraft. Now, the MiG-21 itself is not a bad aircraft. It's a good aircraft. It has served, venerably and with great distinction in its 50-year history. And this year happens to be the 50-year anniversary of the MiG-21 in service, Ruchika. That tells you another story about how long this aircraft has been in service. The simple fact is the Air Force itself has no choice in the matter, like I said. The Indian light combat aircraft Tejas is delayed. It won't seek, squadron service until the end of next year or beyond. The mother of all deals, as we call it, for, 126 aircraft for which the Indian Air Force has selected the French Rafale fighter, hasn't even seen a contract yet. It will likely be signed by the end of this fiscal. So all of these factors have led to massive delays in the induction of newer aircraft, as a result of which the Air Force has simply no choice but to continue using the aircraft it has in an upgraded form.
Right.
The MiG-21 was upgraded, in phases, and the aircraft being flown right now is called the MiG-21 Bison, which is an upgraded, more modernized version. But let's remember that the MiG-21 that crashed on Monday, killing that 26-year-old flight lieutenant, was an upgraded MiG-21. It continues to be a dangerous aircraft to fly because it has one of the highest landing speeds of any Indian Air Force aircraft, and therefore it continues to be a risk, and that is the essence of this case that this wing commander has filed in court, Ruchika.
To stay on with the issue, I think Air Marshal retired P.V. Naik is back with us. Sir, I wanted to get a sense from you, what do you make of the serving officer moving ports, considering there have been so many accidents involving MiG-21s. It's been given tags like Widowmaker, Flying Coffin. Do you think it's right to blame the machine?
See, firstly, it is Air Chief Marshal and not Air Marshal. Point one.
Apologies for that, sir. Air Chief Marshal P.V. Naik is with us. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, point two. Blaming the aircraft is not always the best policy. This is the latest modified aircraft in the MiG series. And one thing I'd like to assure everybody, when an Air Force aircraft gets airborne, it is 100% serviceable. The technicians and the engineers take pride in that. What happens is when the aircraft gets old, the mean time between failures cannot be judged. So accidents happen. In this case, it's a very sad thing that a young man lost his life. Until I know what the causes of this accident are, probably looks like a technical malfunction. I won't be able to comment on the accident. As far as filing of the petition is concerned, he is an individual. He has full right to file anything because he is a citizen of the country.
All right. So you're saying it's his right to file a petition, move court, if he is aggrieved. But sir, is there anything that actually explains so many accidents that have taken place involving MiG-21, so many crashes?
MiG-21 accidents have happened over a large number of years, and the oldest version of MiG-27 has already been phased out. This is a newer version modified by the Indian Air Force, and it will be phased out, I think, around 2017 or so, if I'm correct. Aircraft are machines, so accidents will happen. There is not a single Air Force in the world where there are zero accidents, although we aim for it. So from everything we learn and thereafter go forward and make a safer environment to fly. I myself have flown 2,000 hours on the oldest MiG-21 version, and I find it one of the best aircraft of its times. Calling it a coffin, etc. is totally wrong.
All right, Air Chief Marshal P.V. Naik, thank you, sir, for joining us.